City, we are talking about the life and death of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. I'd like you now to meet two mothers whose sons were both murdered by Jeffrey Dahmer. Catherine Lacey lost her 23-year-old son, Oliver, and Shirley Hughes lost her 31-year-old son, Tony, both at the hands of Jeffrey Dahmer. I'd like to welcome both of you to the show today. When you first heard the news that Jeffrey Dahmer had been murdered in prison, what did your family do?
Well, it was a shock to me. I wasn't expecting, to hear anything like that,
Mm-hmm. Was it a sense of relief? Does that make any difference to you, Shirley?
Well, it makes a difference because I don't believe in gloating over the death of someone. I'm glad he did. I just wished he had lived, and could be reminded of the things that he done. And so far as my family, we give our sympathy to the Dahmer family because I know now they know how we feel, and they'll continue to know how we feel, how we grieve over our loved ones. No, I don't believe in, gloating over someone. I wouldn't wish death on anyone, I just wished he could have lived and let him be reminded of what he done.
Is this the first time you have seen the Dahmers?
No. We met before in court. I have seen them in court.
Mm-hmm. Here's the chance. You say that you feel for the victims' families. Mm-hmm. There's something that you all have in common now. You've all lost sons. What do you say to each other in moments like this?
I think on an intellectual level, back at the trial, I felt your pain, but I feel it ever so much deeply, right down to the bottom of my heart and gut right now. I feel it totally. And I thank you for your comments, both of you. Shirley, you said you wished he had lived. I wished he had lived too, for the prime reason that he was, and I don't know what kind of an audience we have here, whether it's largely secular or there's something deeper here.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff was actually evangelizing at the prison, handing out different religious material, much to the consternation of
Catherine, does that make you feel better to hear that the past year Jeffrey Dahmer had turned to the Lord?
No, like I said, I was in shock. Okay, I could say, my son too, he was very religious, which I had told the newspaper. I wanted to ask his family when I seen his mother and his father, why come you didn't give him any help, when you seen things that was going on with Jeffrey?
What things did you see?
The things that I saw, at what period of time are you talking about? Because the only thing I ever saw was extreme shyness when he was a youngster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he was arrested for the molestation case, that was the first time that I ever knew that he had real problems, but I had no idea at all of the depth of these problems. And as a matter of fact, we did get help for him. I went to a psychologist with him and set up the initial appointments.
Mm-hmm. From the audience.
That was basically the question I wanted to ask you. When Jeffrey was growing up, were there any indication of abnormal behavior, or did he have problems in school, or what about his friends, or was he a loner? Why weren't you aware of some of these things when he was growing up?
This is the question I asked. How come I didn't know about the road kills, the pet cemetery, the drinking in school? Right. And I'm telling you, we sat at the trial and learned for the first time everything. Now, it's hard to...
But please keep in mind, he was not in the home the last 2 years. Sadly, when Jeff was in high school, due to a tumultuous marriage and a pending divorce, Lionel was ordered out of the house. That is not an excuse, but you must understand he was not there to see what was happening those last 2 years in school when Jeff was getting in trouble and no one was bringing it home to the family.
Let's continue this conversation right after this. We'll be right back. I'm coming over to you.
Something of the person with me. I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.